Okay, so maybe discuss about some data center topics again. So we have already discussed a few times regarding the data centers. So, like as we have already discussed with the growth of AI, there's a significant investment towards building data centers. I read the statistics somewhere that like some major tech companies are preparing to spend over $765 billion in data centers in 2026 alone. So that is a huge amount. And as well, but the thing we have to realize is that it is a land-based resource, and so there's a strain to the resource of the land. So the most immediate uh, strain is the massive drain on the local freshwater supplies. And in the context of suppose the US, it also compounds the issue of cash-starved municipal utilities in many areas. So, for example, in Georgia, there's a data center from QTS or some company like that, which was which used up about 30 million gallons of water without the water utility company knowing about it. And this also led to certain pressure drops, the water pressure drops to the citizens of that place. So the local utility, they failed to notice this massive drain of water for months, mainly because it was transitioning from an outdated way of measuring through some meters, and secondly because it was understaffed at that point with only suppose one worker who was available to inspect these meters manually. And this is just one example. This is not just a local strain, but it represents a suppose a global trend. So AI associated water use is also projected to double over the next 20 25 years or so. In certain drought prone areas like Phoenix in Arizona, I think. So data centers are currently using, let's say, about 385 million gallons of water for cooling, and this figure is expected to reach like 3.7 billion once all of the planned facilities in that area has come online. And this rapid expansion of data centers, whether it be for AI, but mostly for AI, is dangerous because, according to some surveyor, I forgot the name, that found that 40% of the data centers are built in water-stressed regions, and 29% of the global chip foundries, the fabricators as well, are also in water-stressed regions mostly. Uh, could you pause for a second once here? So, yeah, I talked about the water-stressed areas where all of these data centers are being built. But the strain on this is not strain to the water resource is not just because of the data centers or the need to directly cool the data centers. What we have to know is that data centers rely on heavy electrically hungry equipments. So the cooling is not just for the data centers, but for the power plants as well that are generating the electricity to run the data centers. So the water resources necessary for that will also increase as the demand for electricity will increase. And the semiconductor factories, as well as more data centers are built, more chips are required. More chips required means fabrications will have to produce more hardware, more chips. That will also require more electricity. The fabrication itself requires cooling systems. So all in all, as AI is progressing, all the sub requirements of AI is also water resource heavy industry. So the strain on the water resources are increasing in all the directions. Uh, then what else do we have to talk about? Local community. I think more or less already covered that point. So far, do you have any thoughts or points on this?
Uh, Not yet. You can continue. If I have
Okay.
anything, I'll get into it.
Okay, then maybe to quickly summarize what we discussed so far was the land-based resource strain, which is mainly water due to data centers being built, and as a sub domino effect of that is the water resources needs for the power supply as well as the power plants as well as the fabrications. But then there seems to be an alternative to building data centers other than land. So we have more or less a few times discussed about data centers being built on space, orbital data centers, and so on. But there also seems to be plans for data centers that is being built on the ocean. So the main company or the main uh, company that I came to know of is called Panthalassa. I'm not sure how it is pronounced. But this company has raised around 210 million from different investors, like Peter Thiel, to develop a floating AI computing node. So instead of building like massive resource training facilities on land, they are planning to design or they're designing massive spheres or steel spheres that will float on the surface of the ocean. So it will be a tube-like structure that extends vertically. So the sphere will be above the ocean, and beneath the water, the tube will extend, and ocean waves, the motion of the ocean waves will drive the water up in the tube that will spin the turbine, which will create some pressures and so on. And basically, it will convert, it theoretically should convert renewable energy into to power the chips on board. And by operating at sea, these nodes are basically bypassing the massive freshwater consumption that we talked about in the traditional facilities. So they will be cooled naturally through low ambient temperatures of the surrounding seawater, so which will provide a massive cooling advantage to this. And it's not all good just because they're able to resolve one of the challenges regarding water consumption resource, because it is difficult to transmit uh, power back to the land-based grids through the ocean. The Panthalasus model is to process the data directly at the source, meaning at the sphere itself that will be floating on the ocean. So they are not directly connected to the internet via the mm, traditional wired method of what is it the word? Okay, optical fiber connections. It will be powered through satellite communication. from what I understand. So the queries that the inference that happens in the AI chips, the output of that is sent through the satellite communication. So there's a challenge of the bandwidth challenge of the communication speed. So there will be a bandwidth and latency issues, and not just that, the sea itself is a very critical. It's a dangerous in comparison to land. So the nodes itself must be designed in a way that it is able to survive in extreme ocean conditions for a long time without human maintenance, because it will not be able to it will not be as easy to provide human maintenance in ocean than it is in land, and even harder in space. So that replacing and repairing this kind of hardware represents a logistical challenge. Let's see. Yeah, so maybe we can have a look at one of these videos on this Panthalassa startup.
But one Peter Thiel-backed startup thinks the answer isn't there. It's floating in the open ocean. Deirdre Bosa has more in today's Tech Check. Hi, Deirdre.
Hey, Kelly. So the hunt for AI compute, everyone's talking about it all the time. It is pushing capital into new frontiers. And so the smart money, billionaires like Elon Musk and Eric Schmidt, now Peter Thiel, they're betting on putting GPUs beyond land. Today, Panthalassa, it's a wave energy startup. It's coming out of stealth mode with a $140 million round led personally by founders funds, Peter Thiel. A source tells me that it values the company at close to $1 billion. Now, how it works is that enormous node, you can see one here in the ocean. It's essentially covered with chips and powered by waves, and then it beams tokens back via satellite. They're currently working with Musk's Stargate. Now, I caught up with Panthalassa CEO Garth Sheldon Colson, and I asked him how he's even gauging demand that can be years out.
We think the demand will be very large, and what the fleet of AI generating assets looks like, we think that there will be a major component that's on land. There may be a major component that's in space. The land component will have different energy sources, and we think there will be a huge ocean component. And so you're basically taking advantage of all of the energy resources you can find to supply the lowest cost, provide the largest volume, and we think that's what lifts the most people.
Now, the broader bet on AI compute is every available frontier all at once. And basically, Jevons paradox, if it does become more efficient, that is, the more accessible it is, the more companies, consumers, everyone will use. The notion that AI demand won't ever soften is, Kelly, what is underpinning the AI trade at large, from hyperscaler capex to moonshots like this one. And these moonshots, Kelly, they're getting more and more ambitious, certainly looking past physical land.
Jevons.
Yeah, so they seem to be saying that all the types of data centers that is possible will be used all together at once to firstly lower cost, maybe to achieve scale, even for higher scale than what we already have, and so on. So for now, that's all the points I have. Do you have any insights based on the video or what I've discussed so far?
Are you saying something?
No.
Okay, now I can hear you.
So were you able to hear the video?
Yes, I was able to hear, but towards the end, I switched.
So okay. So towards the end, I said about the fact that in the video they mentioned like the plan basically is to use all these different sources or the different modes of data centers at once, even in land, the space and the ocean to achieve some sort of lower cost or economies of scales or whatever you call it. Uh, yeah, so I was asking you if you have any insights on what we've discussed so far.
Yes, first of all, I was not aware of this sea-based data centers, so that is something new I learned. So I think in my whole mental model of things, uh, it is something new, but uh, certain questions that I have is that to what extent, like what kind of computation is that data center doing? Because it looks quite small compared to the ones that are normally built. So what is it doing?
Yeah, so I think it is only used for inference.
Okay,
It will not be used for training the models, but for inference. And even then, since it is satellite based, they are saying they're like, where is it? So the satellite link, there will be latency, the bandwidth will be limited. So those are the two major challenges of having that kind of a data center on ocean. Beyond that, I will also have to look into the details of how much or how it differs from different data centers and so on.
okay. So this is going to be mostly for inference.
Yeah, at least the one they are building is for inference alone.
Okay, because
I think they also mentioned there will be for satellite communication, they are relying on Starlink.
okay. So again, there's also some aspects of space technology related to this because since there will be satellite-based communications.
Yeah.
I'm already working on another article which is related to another satellite-based communications company, which is called Iridium Technologies. So, uh, which is quite older than SpaceX and everything. It existed back since 1998 or something like that. Iridium Technologies. So, yeah, I get the idea that satellite communications will be used here.
Mm.
So that's another use case for satellite communications, but yes, we'll have to look into how will this technology be integrated within
So
the
there
whole.
seem to be other, let's see, I don't exactly recall. There are other ocean-based alternatives, it seems. This UI. So other than the Penthales, how you say there's this Microsoft project Natic. So it seems they did the experiments in 2015 and 2018 itself. Okay, and they found that sealed seawater cooled systems actually achieve lower hardware failure rates than traditional land-based system. But they decided not to go with the commercialization of the system back then. Okay. What about China? Chinese tech companies have moved beyond the experimental phase, actively deploying underwater data centers near Hainan Island and off the coast of Shanghai, Singapore also. So like the main point of having an ocean data center seems to be the cooling advantage that they're talking about, which bypasses the need for fresh water and electricity bottlenecks as well. Okay. We can maybe dig deep into some of the industry dynamics and growth topics of this. Let's see what it has to say. Yeah, so like I mentioned, estimated $765 billion towards new AI data centers in 2026 alone, mostly driven by the development of hyperscale data centers. I'm not sure what hyperscale data centers mean, but mostly from Meta, Google, Microsoft.
Hyperscaler means the data centers built by those big tech companies, because those are not very specified data centers. Those are used by for multiple use cases such as
Okay.
AWS, Azure, those kind of things.
Yeah, I think this point also I remember the skewed power dynamics with local municipalities. So there seems to be a clash or the congruence with the community is not there. So local municipalities where the or the places where the data centers are planned to be built, they are built without a lot of environmental reviews or not accountability. Basically, without notifying the citizens or the community in that area, and they're just the local municipality or the politicians or whoever are involved are making these deals in the without much uh, community feedback. So they're not bothered much about the environmental effects, maybe, or they're not doing the reviews properly, and so on. So there are a few cases of those kind of power dynamics as well because of like big tech companies involved. And the one I initially mentioned, right, the Georgia data center, where 30 million or so of the gallon of water was used unnoticed. So when it was investigated and found, they were not fined heavily or anything like that by the local power there. They were basically just they had to pay some $150,000 in uh, what was it called, like past charges or something basically. And the reasoning, the mayor or whoever, whatever the term is, said that they are the biggest customer of our county, and this is similar to customer service because we need them. So if a particular, like these are not built in big states or big cities, right? These are built in, you can, like a rural town or nearby rural town where there is not uh, comparatively less economic activities. So having a data center creates a sort of maybe income for the state or the county or the area, and they in terms in the pursuit of some economic gain or political gain, people are willing to look behind or look past these kinds of any environmental issues. Yeah, I think that's about it for this. Mm, Looking at this AI powered leak detection, I remember, or I'm able to recall that Microsoft seems to be working on some kind of AI powered leak detection system. so that the AI itself will be able to detect if there's a leakage to the water systems. But don't you think this sort of creates a kind of loop or like a ironical situation, because the AI is checking whether there's a leakage in the water system, and the water system itself is being used to power that particular AI, and the AI again is checking if there's a water leakage. It's sort of like a circular ironical
Okay.
situation.
Yes, in some ways it is circular, but as long as that's not the only thing that the AI is doing, that means it makes sense.
Yeah.
Otherwise, it would be completely circular.
Mm, do you have any other points? I think that's all I had to cover in this topic.
Okay, so somewhere I saw that there are in one of those branches there was something related to investments. Can you find the branch? Yes, build out. Okay. Uh, since it there has been since Peter Thiel and his venture fund is like funding this thing, that means it is, I think, a serious option. I mean, it's not just a very fringe option that people are trying out. It is one of those serious options, it looks like, because someone like Peter Thiel's venture fund is working on it.
Yeah,
Yes, that's one thing that I can figure out from this one. Now,
I think the investment trend here is basically that big tech are funding a lot of data centers. 210 million from Peter Thiel for the Ocean Tech Ventures, and overall the industry is backing more data centers to be built.
yes.
And this is based on the two sources I have given. It's not a holistic overall picture.
And also, you mention like did you mention about its practical applications right now, like whether any AI companies are using this thing or it is just very experimental right now?
I
Mm,
don't think it is part of the.
About you, somewhere I saw that there were some Chinese companies working something like using it for any practical use cases.
So that is the part of this other marine projects, not this one.
Yes,
This is comparing. This is checking if other places also have this kind of ocean-based alternative. So saw the Microsoft Netic one, which they did in 2015, 2018. But
2015.
yeah,
So that will be some different kind of data centers then. So it is not going to be an AI data center.
the yeah. So data centers in, I don't think technically it differs, like, or it differs in terms of the power used and those things, but the physical mechanism of having a data center would be same. If you have a data center for cloud storage, it would be similar to having an AI data center. You'll just need to change the components.
Yes, that is true. But also AI data centers have to be structurally somewhat different because the
Yeah,
whole,
and this is not in continuation. So it mentioned they experimented in 2015 to 2018,
yeah,
but they did not continue with the commercialization of that data center. But
yes,
in this experiment, they were able to identify that compared to land-based uh, data centers, the equipments in the ocean are more resilient because of the cooling effect or so, or something like that.
okay.
So maybe It was like one of the base or one of the first few experiments, and others are building on top of them. So this Chinese one is, I think, completely different from this Panthalassa one. They have their own system of data centers, which seems to be active in some parts of Shanghai or Hainan or something like that.
So that means, but again, these are also the Chinese data centers. Are they AI data centers or there something else? Are they traditional?
I don't know if it is mentioned in detail in the sources. Let's see. Yeah, they have not mentioned any details of what kind of data centers these are. Maybe you can look into that.
But yes,
But it's like basically it doesn't seem to be a one-off kind of venture. Other people or players are also looking into ocean-based data centers to whatever degree possible.
okay. So this, I mean, we can get a better picture, I think, of how we can get a better picture of how AI data centers actually work by looking at one video. If it's possible, you can go to that YouTube channel called Semi Analysis. So they are probably the best source for the hardware aspects of computers, data centers. Yeah, I think the first video itself is the GPU cluster. I think if you look at the first 2-3 minutes.
A single Blackwell GPU can cost more than a car. It can use more power than a home. And many AI startups spend more money on GPUs alone than on their entire human team.
We'll just go through this once. Eight pillars of GPU clusters: GPUs, storage, networking, control plane, support, good put.
Okay, it doesn't specifically talk about this thing. Or maybe you can just search AI data centers versus regular data centers.
Let's have a look at this.
What is a data center? A data center houses rows of computers and equipment for storing, processing, and transmitting data. They typically have few windows and extra security, including cameras and sometimes biometric screening. The computers need a lot of electricity to operate and to keep the equipment from overheating. That also requires more electricity and huge amounts of water for elaborate air conditioning. The International Energy Agency says one large data center uses the same amount of electricity as it takes to power 400,000 electric cars. Tech companies are increasingly using their data centers to train and operate artificial intelligence systems. Training an AI model to learn from huge amounts of data requires additional computing power. Conventional data center services run on processors known as CPUs. AI relies on graphics processing units, or GPUs. The IEA estimates that asking OpenAI's ChatGPT to compose an answer requires nearly 10 times as much electricity as a traditional Google search. Amazon, Microsoft, and Google have all announced plans to tap into nuclear energy to help power their US data centers. They've also helped finance new wind and solar farms and other alternative energy sources. In the near term, however, most data centers are still heavily reliant on the surrounding electricity grid, which is largely powered by burning fossil fuels. the primary cause of global warming. This is making it harder for some countries and tech companies to keep their promises to address climate change.
This was relatively quite simple, but
Okay, what is this one? Let's
More than half of
electrical grid bottlenecks.
it looks like overall there is a shortage of, oh, not shortage of supply, but in terms of electricity, there is shortage of supply, but in terms of chips, it is saying that there is more because
So yeah, it seems like there was overestimation from Nvidia's part.
yes, then it says inventory concerns. It says Nvidia's inventory has grown. That means it's not selling too much.
When did
So
this come out? 1 month ago. We will have to check how accurate this is. Because on the one hand, we said like there's like $765 billion of investment in data centers. So
yes,
if they're building that much data, if they're investing that much amount, there must be a demand for these GPUs as well.
yes. So
That
there are certain contradictory informations which needs further research to like get a better understanding of what's happening.
yeah, maybe this is also seems an interesting title. Let's quickly see
Hi. Welcome
what is he saying.
In power
Supply
bottleneck,
chain, power bottlenecks, community impact, backlash we talked about.
economic and structural risks.
Yes, I think similar topics as well. So underwater, passively cooled data centers.
Mm. Yeah, the one thing that common, which is common, is the thing related to energy, and that is why I think they're focusing on alternate sources of energy, including solar, sorry, wind, nuclear, and so on.
Yeah,
It's one of the things. And like what logically thinking, it all comes down to the actual capacity of the AIs. I think it's not about because the information is so crowded regarding this area of technology AI is that there are all sides of people giving. Some people are saying like it's not going to work out. Some people are saying that it's just the beginning and so on. But without going through the news, just thinking from first principles, the things that it is the beginning. If if the technology is genuinely useful, I mean if it's genuinely what it claims to be, because like from my own personal use, the kind of mistakes it does sometimes, like it makes me wonder how can it do complex things. As I previously already told you, like there are certain silly mistakes that it does, and the thing about using chatbots is that there is a lot of back and forth. So there is a lot of here, like after every step, a human gets to give their inputs. But when it comes to agents will do multiple tasks, which will be built on top of some other task, like decision one, like task one, then task two will be based on task one, and so on, multiple layers of that. So if one mistake happens in one layer very early on, those things will compound over time, and the final product will be way off what the original objective was. And by the time the human comes to review it, it will take a lot of time to figure out which step the original error occurred so that it doesn't happen in the next time. So in that process, the whole point, it is the whole point of doing it through AI. If the human has to go through all the effort of figuring it out and fixing the errors. So it all comes down to the actual capability of the AI. So how genuinely good it is, or how much versus how much of it is hype. And
So, but some figures in AI, like we have this Karpathy and Andrew, they seem to be a big proponent of this agentic AI thing. Time to time, they will keep talking about this. I don't know if they try. I mean, Andre Karpathy is in Anthropic now, right?
yes,
Maybe he has an incentive to talk positively, but I don't know what kind of incentive NG might have. He's just, I don't know if he has a company. I mean, he has the deep learning AI, but I don't know if they're involved in uh, any kind of agentic building agentic AI models or anything.
yes. I mean, yeah, like okay, from Andrew Ng's point of view, since he has a like a edtech company, so it makes sense like to sell his courses. Like okay,
Yeah, with that,
okay,
just one angle.
yeah. But that is just that's thinking from like playing the devil's advocate. Like okay, what could be the like malicious reason behind doing that? So that's one way of thinking about it. But since they are saying, so again, we should also analyze it from the other side. Like what could be the positive reasons why they are saying this, and maybe they are things are genuinely good enough. And so that is again my hypothesis that I talked earlier, that there are different tiers of models, which uh, maybe at the enterprise level or at the max level, the top tier subscription level, the models are quite different as compared to the general models that people get. That could be
But
one of
isn't
the.
it already known that it is a different model?
What do you mean by that?
Meaning when you pay the max subscription and you get access to whatever the name is, Max AI,
Yes. Yes.
it is a better model than the one you get in the free tier.
Yes, that is true. But there is even for example, speaking about Perplexity, there is Pro and then there is Max. So Max is above Pro. So there are multiple tiers of subscription. There's not just one tier of subscription.
Yeah,
So what I'm saying is that uh, you have to go more and more expensive. So I do not have the Max. I only have the Pro. So my experience is only at the Pro level of models. And what I think is that even the Max, the one that is for consumers, like for consumers who are like individual subscriptions, I think those who are still inferior than the ones that will be used by enterprises or like very dedicated institutes. Maybe some
also I
institute.
think that the kind of advanced outputs coming from these AIs or the products being built are, they're not using the chat interface. Maybe they're more so using the token model. You understand what I'm trying to say? Like they use the
So,
API through the
yes,
API,
yes.
not through this kind of chat interface that we are using. So maybe the context there is a bit more different, and I think the cost will be a lot more higher in order to, like, oh, the one example you gave before was some mathematics thing, right?
Yes.
So we don't know how much it costs them in terms of tokens used, etc. Because Fable, I think Fable is accessible now in some. I don't know if it is accessible in India. Maybe in, at least in US it is. And even if you pay for Fable through the chat Claude chat interface, there's a limit for the token usage. After a certain few chats, even if you have paid for it already, you do not have access. So it is that expensive. If you're trying to solve an even complicated problem where you have a lot of back and forth, the cost is going to be quite high to get the output.
Yes. So now connecting it to the point that I was making is that the argument that this kind of videos are making, like the data centers are being stopped and so on. So uh, what are they arguing here? Like, it is their opinion, or are they saying data? That's first of all, the first question is that. Obviously, we haven't seen the whole video, so we don't know. So whether this is a opinion kind of video, or are they finding a pattern? Because from my, like, as far as I know, since they are putting so much of investments in building data centers, so definitely from that point of view, I don't think it's slowing down. But maybe from an maybe so these are all just their opinions about that it should not be working. And again, there are some data as well, like there are some signals as well. Like, for example, recently there's been news like Meta is trying to like lease their internal data centers to outsiders. So what does that mean? It means that they do not have enough requirement for their own data centers. That is why they are trying to lease it out, like for other people. No, they're not just using it for internal purposes. So this is one of like is indirect signal about like lack of demand or the lack of uses. So in some cases, so again, these signals are not obvious. Like, you have to look into like from an indirect point of view, the one that I mentioned about Meta. So from that point of view, it could be true that AI data centers aren't working anymore. So their demand is decreasing. But when I think about it, it's not going to be a complete uh, lack of, like, AI isn't going to go away completely. That's one thing for certain. As much as people would like to say, because there's on the one hand there are certainly genuine use cases to it, and if it can be built upon, it will be another layer of technology on which people will get used to. In a way, like, people these days got used to the internet and the laptops and the phones. Like, we do not know about a time when this thing did not exist. So AI will be like that at the very least. So it won't be like when they say that AI bubble will burst and there'll be an AI crash. It doesn't mean like we'll go back to the time when there was no AI. That is never going to happen. As long as this civilization exists, like if there is some kind of apocalypse and then there's a post-apocalyptic world, the world begins from new. That's a different scenario. But in this timeline, AI is not going to go away completely.
Yeah.
So
So the thing that covers most of everything, all the topics.
yes. So anything else do you have to say?
No, I think that's it for now.
Okay. So I'll stop the recording, but I have some
Okay.
other things to say.